So I waited to skippily. Time for a homework review. Some of you had some struggles on this one. Some interesting stuff happened. I have put, as usual, red rectangles around some translation problems, and there were a lot. And there's some I'm just now realizing I didn't mark, and we'll talk about those. And black rectangles around what's on the grammar quiz. So let's dive right in. Rufilla and Cubiculo said it. Most of you did okay with this part with the italices. I didn't really count off too much, but keep in mind these are all present tenses. A lot of you went to past tense. Conspects is the only perfect tense here. Just watch for that. Okay, it's easy to get used to one tense or another and then switch back and forth, but these are all present tense. Rufilla is sitting in the bedroom. 2 slave women are standing near her and doing her hair. You can say that. Doing her hair. That's fine. Salvia enters. Rufilla, as soon as she has seen him, it's the only perfect, she dismisses the slave women from the room. Still getting a lot of people who are not paying attention to their cases and their verbs. You've got to learn to watch your verbs and your subjects. This does not say the slave girls were dismissed. It doesn't say that. We don't know any passive verbs. If you're making the subject have something done to them, it is wrong. It's wrong. So, as soon as she has seen him, she dismisses the slave girls from the bedroom. Rufilla. Salwe. Now, a lot of you put, hello. That'd be Salwe. This is Salwe. It's capitalized. This is his name in the vocative. Salvius, you are a cruel man. You are a cruel man. Another verb that a lot of people messed up. They said, like, it is a cruel man. Sum es est. Throughout this passage, I had problems with people not using the correct person and number on your verbs. All sorts of problems here. People not using second person or when it's there, or first person when it's there. You are a cruel man. No labom. I was not wanting to come to this villa. And by the way, you can just use villa. You do not need to translate villa as country house. I do not like it that this book and lots of other Latin books provide translations for Latin words that are specific to Roman culture. A villa is a specific type of house, and it's a specific type of architecture that is specific to Roman culture. And when you translate it as country house, which is fine, that's what they tell you to do. I'm not taking it off for that. But when we translate that way, we are obscuring the meaning of the word, not illuminating it. Translation should be about illuminating via our own language what the language that we're reading actually says and means. There are some words that just do not have an equivalent in English, and that's the case for all languages. There are some words in languages that just don't have an equivalent in another language. And villa is one of them. A villa is a villa. Okay? You say country house, people think of what? A southern plantation or something? Or a ranch style house? I mean, what is that? We don't, there's no, when you use a term like that, then you're begging the reader to make their own cultural assumption, which is not accurate. So just leave villa, okay? I was not wanting to come to this villa. I was wanting to stay in the city London. Or in the city of London is fine. No labom and wo labom. I was not wanting, and I was wanting. Imperfect tenses. Some of you had some weird stuff here. Yes, nola can be translated I refuse, but here that's weird to say I was refusing. I mean, I guess that makes sense. But I was not wanting, I was not wishing. London is a most beautiful city. Now, Polkarma, you're asked about in the grammar quiz, but almost all of you mistranslated it. You gave me beautiful. London is a beautiful city. Well, that's not accurate. That's a superlative adjective, which your grammar quiz states. This is why I've said over and over again, even though the grammar quiz and the homework are not due on the same day, because I don't want to do that to you, does not mean that you should not look at them together. Even if you don't turn in the grammar quiz until Friday, you should at least look over it while you're doing your homework, because a lot of times these grammar questions will help you with the translation and vice versa. So when you're doing your translation, get that grammar quiz out and look at it while you're going through it. And you might find that just doing it while you're doing the homework is easier than doing it after the fact when you don't have the translation there. It's also going to help you avoid translation errors, like making something a subject that's not. Okay, so London is a most beautiful city. Let's go back up to Wanire. I asked about the tense voice mood, and you said it was, hopefully, a present active infinitive. And what use the infinitive? Complementary. That's the only one we know for the next 5 minutes. Wanire is a complementary infinitive here. It is complementing lo lebon. I was not wanting. If you say that by itself, I was not wanting, that doesn't sound Finnish, right? Doesn't sound finished. I was wanting to come. Okay. Herbs. Hopefully you looked that up and you saw that in the back it's herbs, herbis, feminine, which means that herbs is its nominative. So that's just a good old nominative singular, feminine. Even if you didn't have your dictionary at your disposal, you could know it was feminine by looking at Polkarma. Polkarma has a feminine ending. It has a first declension ending. Polkarma, being a superlative, which we'll talk about in a second, is an usa or first second declension. That means that if it's feminine, it's going to have the ah endings. Here, it's feminine, so you know herbs is feminine. It's feminine, singular, nominative. Now, what use the nominative? Hopefully you all didn't just reflexively say subject. Hopefully you're using the Latin toolbox and the verb parsing document, which explains that there are two uses of the nominative we know, subject and predicate. Predicate is when you have a word describing another word, right? A noun describing another noun, or an adjective describing another noun, with the verb est, with sum est, or aramarasarad, or some form of to be, or something that operates like it. Okay? So London is, if you just said London is beautiful, that beautiful would be a predicate adjective, be a predicate. Here you have London is a city, okay? So that would be a predicate nominative, a predicate noun in English. So that is a nominative, singular, feminine, but it is a predicate use. Polkarma, we've already talked about. That's a feminine, singular, nominative, superlative adjective. London is a most beautiful city where I have many friends. Oh my gosh, so many people. Where many of my friends live. You guys have got to be more specific on your vocab. You have an open book. You can look up every single word if you need to. There is no reason to translate habeo as though it is habitant. Habeo and habito are not the same word. You got to look beyond the first few letters of a word. You can't just okay, H-A-B, habito, live. There's lots of words that start with H-A and H-A-B in the back. You got to be more exact than that. Moreover, habeo is a first person verb. You got to look at that and say, okay, what's my subject? What's my verb? The better order would be what's my verb and what's my subject. I have many friends. Where I have many friends. That's what that should be. Amicus is on the grammar quiz. That's, of course, a feminine. plural accusative. I am a, I am is, as is, feminine plural accusative, direct object. Again, if you were doing the grammar quiz alongside this and said direct object, and then looked at your translation, you'd say, oh, so I can't make that the subject then. If I'm saying it's a direct object on the quiz, I can't make it the subject in my translation. That's the kind of thing you should be doing. Difficile est mihi amicas relinquere. It is difficult for me to leave my friends. Oh, Rufilla. Now listen, here's where we get a new use of the infinitive. Oh boy. Up until now, we have had the complementary use of the infinitive. That happens when a verb is completed by the infinitive, right? You ought. Okay, you walk up to someone and say you ought, they'll look at you weird, right? It doesn't sound finished. It doesn't sound completed. So you need a complementary infinitive to complete it. You ought. Okay? You ought to move. If you say that to someone, then they'll know what you mean. They'll think you're rude, and it's not very nice to say that, but they'll know what you mean. Likewise, if you walk to someone and go, I want, they'll go, you want what? Okay. Now, you could finish that with a direct object. I want a pencil. Or you could finish it with a infinitive. And in Latin, there's different words for that. In Latin, if you want an object, you use cupio, cupere, right? But if you want to do something with an infinitive, you use volo vela. I want, I wish. So these forms of volo that you're seeing with an infinitive, those are always complementary infinitives. We have a new use of the infinitive, however, here. The use of the infinitive here is the subject infinitive. What does that mean? An infinitive, technically, as I mentioned in the verb parsing document, an infinitive is technically a noun. Let me see. It's a what? I thought it was a verb. It's under verb parsing. It's the second principal part of verbs. Technically, an infinitive is a noun in all technical aspects. Now, we categorize it with our verbs because it makes more sense. But you use it as a noun all the time. You may just not realize it, right? Well, we don't use it as often in English. But to swim is my favorite activity, right? What is your favorite thing to do? And we'll say to go trick-or-treating or something like that. That is using it as a noun. And all you got to do is substitute another noun to see how this works. Okay? So here, it is difficult to leave my friends. To leave is difficult. It works the same way as if you said something like, the teacher is difficult. That would be a nominative, right? That'd be a subject. Here it's the same thing. To leave behind, or to leave, is difficult. Or you turn it around and say, it is difficult to leave, but it's the same thing. So to leave here would be a present active infinitive, but the use would be subject. Now, if an infinitive can be a noun, a subject, that means it has to basically have a gender number case, right? Technically, it's got to have a gender number case if it's going to have a noun. Well, it's pretty easy to see what that gender number case is. Obviously, if it's the subject, if it's a subject infinitive, it's got to be a nominative, right? It's a subject. It is always singular because you always see it with things like est or a rod. So, it is always singular, it's always nominative because it's always a subject, and it's always neuter. So difficilla here, if you look in the back, you'll see difficilis, difficilis, difficilla. Your book is nice about and it really spells it out for you that this is masculine, feminine, difficilis, difficilis, neuter, difficilla. So this difficilla is a neuter, singular, nominative adjective. And it's a predicate because it's a predicate just like herbs was above. To leave is difficult. Now, the biggest clue that you're going to see to let you know that you have a subject infinitive is if your infinitive is going with est or a rot. Remember, if it's the subject, it's got to have a verb it goes with, right? Subject, verb, subject, verb. Okay? The only verb or subject it really ever goes with is a form of est, a form of sum, to be, or something that operates like it. Words that we really don't have yet, but that operate like it, like a verb to become or a verb to seem. He seems nice, right? That operates the same way as he is nice. So for now, the biggest clue, and the one to just watch out for, 99% of the time out of 100, even as you go through your career, is going to be the verbs est and erat. If you have any form of to be in the third person singular, est, erat, those are the present and the imperfect forms. Those are the most common, but you could see it with fuit, or any other form of sum, ss, sumus, ss, sunt, in the third person singular. Okay? So either it was or it is such and such to verb. So it's easy to see, right? Or it's difficult to leave, as it is here. Often it's with verbs, or if it's with adjectives like that, but it's almost always going to be with the verb est or erat for now for you. So do you have a subject or a complementary infinitive? The first thing you need to look at is, what's the verb? Okay, what's the verb that this infinitive is going with? Is it est? Is it erat? Then you've probably got a subject infinitive, almost certainly. Is it some other verb, like ought or wish or want or something like that? Then it's complementary, almost assuredly. So that's how you tell these two apart. Really not hard to tell them apart at all, because est and erat are some of the most common verbs you see. So you just got to be on the lookout for them if they end up with an infinitive. So now you know two uses of the infinitive. The complementary, our good old complementary like we've had, and now the subject infinitive. So watch out for that on future quizzes. Now for the remainder of our assignment, Rufilla, quam lewis es. So she says, it's difficult for me to leave behind my fence. And he says, Rufilla, how lewis you are. Lewis, I asked you about on the quiz. It is a good old feminine singular nominative. How do we know it's feminine? Because he's talking to Rufilla. You are, and it literally just means light. Here it means something like fickle, right? Changeable, undecisive, indecisive. How fickle you are. Feminine singular nominative. What use? Predicate again. The subject is you. It's not a subject. The subject is you. If you look in the parsing verbs document, the verb parsing document in the Latin toolbox, you'll see that there are examples of predicate nominatives that look like this. Okay. So predicate nominative. That's the use of this nominative. Ubi in urbe Londinio, habitabamus, quotidia ad me veniebas. Now, I didn't circle this one or rectangle it. So many of you, when you see ubi, you automatically put where. Ubi can also mean when. And if it doesn't make sense with where, change it to when. I had a lot of people write where we were living in the city of London. I mean, maybe you could understand a way in which that makes sense, but it makes more sense to say when we were living in the city of London, right? Habitabamus, good old first person plural. Imperfect, bombas bot, first person plural, imperfect active indicative. When we were living in the city of London, every day you were coming to me. Winnie boss, bombas, that's a second person singular. Again, lots of people translating this as the third person. Every day you were coming to me. Every day, dikebas, you were saying to me. Dikebas, every day you were saying to me. So here, I have to do an impression of Salvius doing an impression of Rufilla. That's hard. Said to me, does. So every day you were coming to me, every day you were saying, I also want to have a rustic villa or a country villa. Now, habere again is not habitare, it's habere. So I want to also live in a. No, I also want to have. If you're saying I want to live in, where's the in? Where's the in? If you find yourself adding words that you don't see in there, it's probably wrong. It's probably wrong. I also want to have a rustic villa, but you give me nihil, nothing. Das is a second person singular. But you give to me nihil, nothing. Now, I should have maybe asked about mihi. I don't like to ask about these pronouns as often because we don't see them as much, but I mean, we see them all the time, but we don't decline them as often. Mihi is a dative, and if I'd asked about it, hopefully you would have recognized that that is the only dative use we know so far, which is the dative of indirect object. In other words, you give nothing, direct object, mihi, to me. But you give to me nothing, indirect object. Finally, I gave to you a villa. So this is just dedi, it's just do, dari, dedi. Finally, I gave to you a villa, another indirect object with tibi there. Villa, this is the direct object. I gave a villa to you. Finally, I gave a villa to you, but even now, you are not content. You are not satisfied. So that's it. That is our homework for this week, plus a little extra something about the infinitive. If you have any questions, let me know. Send me an email. Drop into office hours. A lot of you are now making use of office hours. I'm very happy to see that. Make an appointment. It helps if you make an appointment, just because sometimes lots of people show up at once, and that's just not good for anybody because I can't give you full attention. So it helps if you make an appointment, but you don't have to. But it's very, very helpful and encouraged. And all you got to do is click on that link that I have everywhere. And you don't even have to, I mean, your parents can do it. Anyone can do it. You just put your name in there. So there's not even like a sign-in necessary is what I'm getting at. Make an appointment. Come to office hours. Shoot me an email. Leave me a comment. Get engaged if something's not making sense. Okay? 10 minutes. And you probably will understand and move about your day. But 10 minutes of me explaining it to you and you getting it is a lot better than struggling with it for 30, 40 minutes at a time every week when you don't get something. Right? Invest the short amount of time you need now so that you don't have to spend more time later. That's what I would suggest. Until then, and until next time, Wale Tate Skipley.